Welcome to Community Connections with Children's Services Council of St. Lucie County. I'm just one of your hosts, Sean Boyle. With me is
Ashley Mock. Why are you laughing already? We just got here.
Welcome to the half-hour radio program that airs every Sunday on 104.5 The Flame at 10 a.m. Our longtime, nearly, if maybe even 10-year partner. We're not that great with math. But also once a month, thanks to a wonderful partnership with WOLX Studios, WOLX Horizon Studios, part of the St. Lucie County Public Schools channel. Our little radio show becomes a monthly television show, which, you know, for better or for worse, shows our faces as we talk about resources and things that are available in our great community. And I gotta say, Ashley, we're very grateful for The Flame. I mean, because we've been either
some number of years.
What was it before the WIRA or the Flame partnership for almost 10 years, if not 10 years. Again, not that great with math. But then also we got to thank the St. Lucie Public Schools for allowing us to have a half-hour spot, and a big thanks to Craig, who always tells us what to do, what not to do while we're in the studio.
We need direction. We need a lot of direction. That's helpful.
But we're grateful for both those partnerships. If you're a long-time listener, you know exactly what I'm going to say next. If you're a first-time listener, I say this in my sleep.
There's a quiz.
We at the Children's Services Council are not media professionals. That was obvious from the jump. But what we do for our community, and we really focus on, throwing up 10, but 5 priorities. Those priorities are: 1, making sure every baby's a healthy baby; 2, stopping child abuse before it happens; 3, keeping kids off the streets; 4, keeping them in school; and 5, keeping them off drugs, alcohol, and other risky behaviors by offering programs and resources and really developing systems of care in those 5 priorities to make sure that our children and our families have access to the needed resources.
So as you do for our televised version, you brought props today.
I did. Or cheat sheets. I'm going to stick with props.
Props. Props is the right word. So Sean talked about those priority areas, but there are this year 51 programs, 52 programs? 53 programs? I'm counting. 53 programs that we are working with throughout the community that do all of those things that Sean talked about. We do produce a family guide to programs, which is available in a printed copy. We also, for the first time this year, excitedly have it in multiple languages. So you can obtain this printed copy of our family guide to programs in English, Spanish, Creole, and Portuguese. So if you have a location where these could be displayed, or you are looking for more information, there's a digital version on our website, but you can also get printed versions that we would be happy to bring to you. So the Family Guide is a good place to get all of that information. And also, all of the information about our funded program partners is available on our website at cscslc.org. We've got a description of every one of those programs along with their contact information. So if there is something that you're looking for you, your family, a coworker, all of that information is accessible there for you.
And we're also on social media. Yeah, you know, a pregnant pause there, because we're like, is that a good thing or not? It's a good thing when you use social media in a positive way.
That's right.
We post inspirational messages, program descriptions, or program information, as well as activities are available for children and families. And we're on Facebook and, because I'm cool like that, IG. Which stands for Instagram.
You've been hanging out with teenagers.
It's like Facebook just for pictures, for people who don't like to read.
That's right,
All right,
exactly.
So we're just talking before we hit record that if you want to know, like, this radio show has kind of grown up. I mean, we might be developmentally delayed, but it's kind of grown up.
It's advanced.
We've been doing it for a few years, and we're grateful. We started with WIRA AM 1400 AM.
Yeah.
The Flame sister station at the time, and all these shows, the WLX studios, they would come in and record.
Yeah.
And they were like literally 5 feet away from us. Remember Jason?
I do, yeah.
And so I say all that to say, if you want to see how we've aged, so I have aged by about 50 years. This young woman, I don't know what she's doing.
True.
She's actually Benjamin Buttoning this whole thing. She's getting younger. But if you ever want to see what past shows look like, it's kind of fun to go down a little memory lane.
It is. And too, it's funny, I think, because I told you someone recently said something to me about a show that was long ago. But you can see our programs grow too, because we have had some program partnerships that long. And so some of the same staff is working in those programs, so we get to have ongoing conversation with them. So you can see how the programs have grown and changed and adapted really to what the community needs as we grow. So it's kind of a cool exercise in history.
Do you remember in the studio
the chairs that
would sync when people were talking? Or remember the time where we scheduled 2 guests and one guest didn't show, and we're recording live, right? And so you had to go. We had to pan the meet while you went out in the hallway to try to find somebody we could talk to.
We wrangled someone down in the hall. Yeah.
So we're just going to go down memory lane with this half hour. No, we want to. We thought, we thought it would be a good opportunity to kind of reset, to talk about really why we even do this show.
Yeah.
I mean, besides it's fun and we get to hang out with Craig and it's nice and cool in here. I like it. But I guess 9.5, maybe close to 10 years ago. Just a little recap of how we ended up on the radio, because it wasn't because we auditioned. So there were some, so there were quite, just being frank, there were some shootings in Fort Pierce about 10 or so years ago, and a couple of tragic situations. And there was a community forum. Reverend Phil Part and his church, I can't remember the name of the church, I can remember where it's located. They had a community meeting. They wanted to talk about what did the community want. And I attended, and I sat in the back, because I'm shy that way. I sat in the back, and I just wanted to listen. And we heard very passionate people, very passionate moms and dads and grandparents that genuinely cared about the community, but they just didn't know where the resources were. So, for example, I remember this one lady saying, we need help with parenting. Like, some of these families are struggling with how to parent their child. And they're like, we don't know where to go. And in my head, I'm like going, okay, I know we provide resources that will come to them. They don't have to travel anywhere. And then the one that really got me, and this is when I came to you, I'm like, we got to do something, was they were like, we need a place for our children to go after school. And we are literally a half a block away from a Boys and Girls Club site. And in my head, I was thinking, oh my gosh, like, people aren't even aware of the resources that are out there that are literally in their backyard.
Yeah.
So we talked about it. And we said, you know what? Keep in mind, this was 10 years ago. Social media wasn't all that it was cut up to be it is today.
How do we get this information
So we're
out
like,
there?
so I asked Larry Lee, who owns The Flame and WIRA. I'm like, hey, Larry, we're interested in doing some public service announcements, letting people know that there are resources out there. We thought, The Flame is a very widely popular station. And so we thought, well,
we'll do some ads.
We'll get Jumpin' Joe to do some ads for us. It will sound cool. And in that conversation, Larry's like, he's like, we'll do that, He's like, but if you really want to have an impact, you should have a regular presence. I'm like, what do you mean by that? And he's like, well, a radio show. And I'm like, I can already feel myself pulling away from the table.
What do you
I'm
mean by that?
Do tell me, like, Jumpin' Joe would do our radio show? He's like, no, you could do the radio show. And I'm like, like, okay, I'm already like thinking to myself all these excuses not to do it. And then he's like, but it's got to be consistent. I'm like, so like once a month for like a half hour? And he's like, no, I'm thinking weekly for an hour. And do you remember when I came back?
I said, no thanks.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, my intent was, Ashley, congratulations, you got a radio show. Let me know how it goes. But I was just like, you know what? It's always better when you have 2 hosts, 2 people talking. I'm like, I'll go in with you. My full intent was to pull out.
And so let me, do
it. And so we started bringing guests on. We started having really intricate conversations. And people started connecting.
Well, and really, I think our purpose at the time was these programs existed, and sometimes people did know about them, but there was some hesitancy in reaching out for help, or they didn't know what the process was going to look like. And so we kind of wanted to we call it like a kitchen table conversation. We wanted to bring that conversation to like one that you would have with your friends, so that it wasn't intimidating anymore, and you knew what to expect if you were reaching out. And truthfully, just so you knew what was available, so you knew what was out there if your family or a friend or someone was looking for help. So it really, I think we had a lot of fun when we first started. An hour is a long time, I will say that.
Yes.
An hour live. An hour live is a long time. We used to take callers, which was really fun. And we would
accidentally hang up on people, which was really fun.
Right, yeah. We did not grow much in our function of the board and how to do the show.
Oh yeah, the actual.
Joe had to babysit us quite a lot.
If we took phone calls, we would panic. But other than that, we were good. We didn't even have commercials.
No, we didn't.
Because nobody would sponsor the show.
We didn't. We couldn't take breaks because we didn't know how. No. But really, I think even looking back all the way till now, we have, I feel like, educated the community about what's out there. And we know that it worked because we would have guests come on and come back to us and say, when I got back to my office after the show aired, I had 5 voicemails from people that were looking for services or needed a referral or something like that. So we know that you guys, our listeners, were paying attention and we're learning. And really, I think that's just why we continue to do it, because we know that it's impacting you guys, and that's what's important to us.
And I think the other thing, and look, we're not just going to talk about the show. We have other things that we're going to talk about here. We're not trying to break that fourth wall, if you will. But I think the other thing, and the greatest piece of advice that we got for this show was from Jumping Joe, who said that if you're smiling, that the audience, even though it's a radio program, they can feel that, right?
Yep.
So I say all that because we kind of infuse our personalities into the show. Like
we like to have
we
fun.
act this way outside the show. This is us. So in a way, even though we haven't met everybody that's watched and listened to the show,
we feel like we
feel like they know us and we
Yeah.
kind of know them. So it's been a great relationship, and we're grateful for the studio here, the WLX studio, and Larry Lee and Alice Lee and the Flame and that whole entire crew for allowing us to grow this show to whatever it may be.
Yeah.
For all I know, they're looking to kick us off, but for growing it what it is. So let's talk about the resources. So we've been around since 1990. Not myself, I'm old, but not that old. But the Children's Services Council has been providing resources, and we are very much, I just spoke at the chamber this morning, and I asked, how many of you think that we're a 501c3? And half the people think that we're a nonprofit organization. We're not. We're a unit of local government that are here on the request of the community, because you have to establish one. And even though every county can establish one, there's 67 counties. There's only 10 children's services councils in the state of Florida. We're fortunate that there's one here. But we are very much those 5 priorities that we talk about all the time. Make sure every baby's a healthy baby. Stopping child abuse. Keeping kids off drugs.
Keeping kids off the street.
Keeping kids off the streets, and
keeping kids in school.
I went out of order. I went out of order, so it threw me off. But those are broad categories. But we are very much a data-driven organization. So we track community indicators under all 5 of those categories, and we look at the trends, and not just like the county trends, but we look at, because of wonderful partnerships with the health department and Healthy Start and the Roundtable, we know the geographic trends.
Right.
We know where things are up, things are down, good, bad, or whatever, and we utilize our resources to address those needs. And we've had success in doing that. And this isn't a bragging point for the Children's Services Council. This is a bragging point for our entire community, because we don't do anything by ourselves.
Right.
Ashley and I just, hang out here and talk to you. It's our program partners that do a lot of the work. But we've had significant impact together as a community.
In several of those areas. And I think, these conversations are the ones that are important to have. And we probably don't have them enough, I think, in our community. We talk a lot about the stories that we tell and the people that are impacted, but the numbers are important too. And the numbers really are kind of where we get to drill down into what it looks like when a community has a Children's Services Council, and what it looks like for our community to have one that operates in the way that we do, and that pays attention to what the needs are and how we've addressed them and what the programs are actually doing. So we talk a lot about the data. We don't share a lot about data on the show because, numbers are numbers.
We try not to put you to sleep.
Yeah, we want to keep it light and entertaining, but I do think it's important to have these conversations because some of it is a little bit eye-opening.
So if anybody's like, so they're really just going to talk about Children's Services Council. Yes, we're just going to talk about the Children's Services Council. But I'm gonna just. I know you said we're not going to do numbers, but I'm going to throw out some numbers.
No, I think some numbers are important.
And I'll say all this to say that, we talked about the Family Guide. And if you have a business, a civic club, a church, and you want us to come speak about what resources are out there, because I think that's one way that we can address some of that, is that everybody knows what resources are out there. We can start connecting our friends and our loved ones. Our friends are obviously our loved ones too. I don't know why I said that. But we can come out and make it entertaining. We can come deliver these and just walk away, or we can come and speak to you. And one of the things that we do is we do this quiz. So I'm not going to go through the quiz, but some of the things that we highlight is, and a lot of things we use since 1990 when we were established, or if a data measure has changed, but I'm just going to pick a couple of them. Juvenile crime since 1990. So fast forward, keeping kids off the streets is after-school programs. Out-of-school time is what we call it, because it also includes the summer. We know, if you know anybody in law enforcement, if you talk to anybody in law enforcement, they will tell you the peak time for juvenile crime is between the hours of 2 and 7 p.m. I apparently like to talk with my hands. 2 and 7 p.m. So think about that. When does high school get out?
2.
2?
1:40.
When do working parents get home? 5, 6, or 7? So there's about a 3 to 5 hour window where a lot of kids are left unattended or unsupervised. And trust me, and think back, listening audience, to when you were a teenager. I'm sure you all made the right choices.
All the time.
But teenage brains aren't fully developed, even though they will tell you they are. They're not. But a lot of times, teens with idle time on their hands sometimes will make poor decisions. That's where you find, you get in trouble with, doing stupid stuff. I can tell you stories when I was a teenager, but I won't, because I don't know what that time period is when I'm exonerated. But our after-school programs give kids something to do after school, something pro-social, something positive, and a sense of camaraderie, right? So I say all that to say, since 1990, when we've started funding after-school programs, and not just us, again, many program partners, faith institutions, other funders, but I can say that juvenile crime is down 75% since 1990.
That's huge.
That's huge. Another one that I like to talk about is child abuse. And we do these measures that are so negative, right?
Yeah.
Child abuse. But they're an indicator that we can track countywide. So we fund many child abuse prevention programs, stopping child abuse. And even year after year, we have great success.
Yep.
They may serve 2,500 families, and those families, not while they're getting services, but a year after, still haven't entered the Department of Children and Families system, which means they haven't abused or neglected their child.
Right.
So child abuse since 2007, not picking and choosing our stats, just that's when they changed the measure. The rate of child abuse and neglect in St. Lucie County is down 69%.
Again, huge.
And again, that's not just Children's Services Council and our program partners, that's all of us, right? Talking about what it means to be a good parent. Saying, hey, if you need help, because parenting is stressful, there's help out there. Now, we're not saying our county doesn't have room to grow. Obviously, it has lots of room to grow. But we're saying that these have an impact on our community.
Yeah, and I think part of the conversation that we have too that is important, and maybe something that we do differently in our community than in others, is we want the feedback from the program participants. Like, we want to know what impact did this program have on you and why. And so we do a lot of informal conversation and collect sort of the qualitative data, if you will, from them too. So we do have success stories from the families, and that part is important as well. And we share a lot of those on our website and on social media, because we know that it's not just about the numbers. It's about the actual life-changing opportunities that these families are given by participating in these programs. And so, they kind of go hand in hand. It's important, I think, to talk about both of them. But those numbers are big. That's not 69%, 79%. That's significant reduction.
Right, and that's, so I'm going to pivot to the other thing, which is accountability. I think that's our middle name. We're Children's Services Council Accountability of St. Lucie County.
That sounds good.
So, and again, because we're a local government entity, it's not, I just said this morning, it's not my money, it's not your money, it's not our board's money, it's the community's money. So we have to be super, super responsible and accountable with it. So we already talked about how our programs achieve stuff. We measure that. We have staff that go and work with them to make sure that we're maximizing the impact that we have with families. And then from a financial standpoint, we can account for every penny that we give an agency because we fund on a reimbursement basis. So what that means is we don't give them, we fund a program $100,000, we don't give them $100,000 and say, have a great year, we're rooting for you. It's quite the opposite. We fund on a line item budget. They have to show proof that they spent the money the way they said so in their grant. And once they show proof that they spent the money and it's left their bank, we will reimburse them. We do that because, again, we need to be accountable to the people that said we can be here, which is the community, so we can account for every single cent that leaves our agency.
And that said, there are times where we say, you know what, we're not going to cover that expense like that.
I get those calls.
Yeah, that didn't fall within the scope of what we agreed to. We're not going to reimburse that funding. So there are situations where that happens. Our programs are smart and they know how to budget appropriately, and so that doesn't happen often. But there have been situations where we have had to take a step back and say, no, like this is our accountability standards, and this is what we're going to do, and this is how, this is what we agreed to. So budget is a significant part of our planning, and an important part of what we work with the programs to do as well. We do publish reports that have all of that information in it on an annual basis. Our annual impact report goes up on our website, goes out in the community. It talks about every dollar that we spend and how. And so that is available for you to look at, if you're bored.
Like right now, just go ahead and pull it up.
But, I think it's important for us, as Sean talked about, for us to be accountable. We have to be transparent. We have to share that information with the community. We have to share that information with the Board of County Commissioners, but it's available to the general public as well. So anytime that you have questions about what we're doing or why, I promise you that there's a place on our website that information exists, or you're just welcome to call us at any time and we can talk to you about it as well.
And I like what you said, or like what we said, and then you said it too, is that, we all said it, I guess, is that, by doing this show, I think people kind of feel like they know us. So like when we're out and about in the community, when we do tables, they will come, not only share successes, but they'll also share their issues that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And we definitely listen to those and take those back to the team. So we want to make sure that even though we're talking to you right now, and you can be saying something, but we can't hear it because it's a television radio show, communicate with us. We utilize that data all the time. The other thing I want to talk about before our time is up, accountability is our middle name. My son has two middle names. He's named after his two grandfathers, Joseph, Don. So we also have two middle names. The other one is economic engine. I realize that's two words, but it's hyphenated, so it works. Economic engine. So the other thing that people don't realize about the Children's Services Council is a couple of things. And I'm going to talk about the support that we give families from an economic standpoint, but we also, our money leverages other money for our community. So and I don't have the exact dollar amount, but I'm going to say roughly $5 million plus we are bringing back into the community. So how do we do that? We'll fund an organization that will leverage money from the Kellogg Foundation or from the state or the federal or another funder, so that we're bringing even more money to our community. But also, I keep saying we're an economic engine because when we break down what our funding goes towards, it goes to about just shy of 400 jobs in St. Lucie County. So we are an economic engine for the community. Now, stay with me, I'm going to expand upon that. So not only that, when we look at the economics and making sure families are stable, think about a workforce. And let's say you're an employer and you've got 5 employees that have kids of childcare age to teenagers, let's say. I'm going to guess that your workplace stays open until 5, if not a little bit longer. So how do you provide stability to working families? You make sure that whatever may be appearing in their family, and I'm going to share you a story that I went through that I shared this morning. I didn't mean to, it just kind of came out. But think about it, you're a working parent and your child gets home at school at 3:30 and they're home alone and they're calling you going, hey, can I eat this? Can I do this?
Can I
do
play video
that?
games?
Or think about it where you're like, oh my gosh, I wonder what my kid's doing. I hope he's not getting in trouble. Or you're a parent and you know that your child's at the Boys and Girls Club. You know that you're going to pick your child up at 5:30, and when you pick them up at 5:30, they're going to have their homework done.
And they'll be fed?
They will have been fed. You will know that they were doing something positive, right? Or you have a child that maybe is childcare, and you know now that your child is in a quality childcare setting, that you can rest your mind at ease, as opposed to something else that may be a little unsafe, for example. Or I'm going to give you an example because this happened to me. Do you care if I share this?
And to me.
And to you. And to you. Well, you can. You want to go first? No. So young Sean. It's another TV series that we're spinning off, like Young Sheldon. Young Sean. When my son was 12 months old, 12 months old. We had a program that sent out what's called Ages and Stages questionnaires. Did the Ages and Stages questionnaire and a little bit behind on his developmental progress. Developmental progress, they should be crawling at a certain age. They should be pulling themselves up. They should be trying to speak. A little bit behind, mentioned to the pediatrician, no big deal. We'll just wait and see. 18 months, we do that same thing. Now it's not a little behind, he's behind. And so we go to the pediatrician says, something that I'll never forget, because he might as well said that the sky is falling tomorrow, is there's reasons to be concerned. So when your child is 18 months old and somebody says there's reasons to be concerned, again, it felt like a ton of bricks landed on me and my wife's shoulders. So fortunately, I worked for the Children's Services Council.
And knew the resources that were
And
there.
you know the Children's Services Council, so you can connect families if this ever happens to them. I knew that there's a program to help with that, Early Steps through Easter Seals. So we contacted Early Steps. At that time, it was Lori Shamroth Carver.
Yep.
Was amazing. Instantly made me and my wife feel better, that it wasn't the end of the world. And my son, for 18 months, had to do speech, physical, and occupational therapy, 3 therapies twice a week. Now, 3 therapies twice a week if it weren't for the Children's Services Council funding this program to bring state and federal dollars down, those therapies would have cost my family $75 for each therapy. So 3 times 75, I'm actually pretty decent at math. That's $225. But remember, twice a week. It would have cost my family $450 a week. Now keep in mind, 18 months old, I have another child that's in childcare and
That you're paying for.
that I'm paying for. And I was making, I don't know, like mid to high 20s at the time.
Right.
$1,000. I did not have disposable income to be funding $450 a week, but I wanted to help my son. And so because of the Early Steps program, he was able to go to those therapies. They worked around me and my wife's work schedule. And he was, in 18 months, was able to catch up. Now, he's got some developmental stuff that he'll never get caught up in, but because of those, he didn't fall further behind his peers. And I'm proud to say he's now almost as tall as me, and he's older, and he's getting his master's degree. But I'm just saying, I'm not just the CEO, I'm also a member of the Hair Club for Men. No, a member of the Children's Services Council. I know from direct experience that they help they help every family and families in all different circumstances.
Right, and I think the important part of your story and us sharing them continually is that without understanding what resources were available, you wouldn't have known that. And
Right.
so it's important for all of us to learn and to share and to talk about what exists and maybe what even doesn't exist so that we can help to fill those gaps. But that's why we talk about the programs so much. That's why we bring the guests on the show. That's why we want you to know and learn and understand about them so that we can solve those problems and help those families and make sure that they have the success that they should all have the opportunity to have.
And I'll be honest, I'm trying to think, I was probably at the Children's Services Council for around 3 years. I didn't even know right away which program.
Right.
I'm like, we got to have something in here, right?
Right.
So I guess my point is to you, what you were just saying is, listening audience, viewing audience, like we owe it to our community, I keep saying this, to our grandkids, our kids, our nieces, our nephews, our neighbors, our congregation members, not to have this entirely memorized. That's our responsibility. But just to know that, hey, if a family needs something,
Come find it.
come find us, because we can help people out, because we don't want families struggling, because when somebody says something's wrong and it involves your kids, I know many of our listening audiences know that's a whole nother level. You could have a major injury, but you're like, are my kids okay? Right? That's the way most of us are built. So we just want to make sure that people know about the resources, and we're very excited to have this show to bring those to you.
Yep.
And so now we'll introduce our guests. No, I'm just kidding. We're out of time. We're grateful for every listen and view, and thank you as we recapped our history. And I just want to remind everybody, one, that we're grateful for every listen and view, and just a reminder that it's our community, our children, our future. Now more than ever, folks, collectively, we're all in this together. We'll see you next time.